What is going on, everybody? Back again today, and as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be breaking down and talking about James Gunn's DCU announcement. He put out a little 6-minute video basically outlining the rough first chapter outline of him and Peter Safran's new DCU live action animation film and TV franchise. So I'm gonna go ahead and play his announcement video. I'm gonna be pausing it in the middle of it to just kind of stop and kind of give my feedback on the different things he says, and kind of try to break it down, give my input on any of the ideas he mentions that I think are good ideas, the ones that I think are bad, what's likely to work, what's not, and then at the end I'll give my overall opinion on what I think about this plan going forward. So let's go ahead and dive into it.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's
So right off the bat with that, I'm glad to hear someone, especially someone in a position like him, as high up as he is now, kind of just making that admission that there has been a problem for a long time. I think he said quite some time. It's good to hear that, because that's basically the first step to fixing a problem is admitting that there is one. Granted, it is easier for him to admit to there being a problem since he's not one of the people from the past administration side of DC Warner Brothers that caused the problem to begin with. James Gunn's involvement with DC and Warner Brothers began when they hired him to direct the Suicide Squad, and I think due to him doing a pretty good job with that and setting up the Peacemaker show, they've kind of decided that he is the guy to run this. So he has not had much involvement with DC and Warner Brothers yet, and therefore his hands are still pretty much clean. So it is easy for him to go ahead and admit that there is a problem, but I'm still glad that we're hearing someone at the company admit that there has been a problem, because there definitely has.
one of our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation.
So that's an interesting point that he makes, talking about how it's all going to be connected. As far back as probably 2012, 2013, I had a problem with this aspect of DC in that the CW at that point in time had created the Arrow show, which was doing well. It was a pretty watchable, entertaining show. And then they branched out and did The Flash. And between those two shows, they had laid the groundwork of a pretty fleshed out DC universe. And at this point in time, as far as films go, all we had was Man of Steel. We did not yet have our Batman v Superman yet. And my initial hypothesis was going to be, okay, so we had Man of Steel, that introduces our Superman. If they're smart, they will understand that with the CW shows, they've got a Green Arrow and Flash already fleshed out. Through Green Arrow, they've introduced Deadshot, Amanda Waller, the Suicide Squad, who else? Ra's al Ghul, even. And then when they made the announcement of how Batman for this universe was going to be older and more established into his career, I thought, well, that lends itself to blending with this like Arrowverse, because the Arrowverse has been going on for a while. Ra's al Ghul has existed, like Green Arrow's had interactions with him, many people have had interactions with him. So I initially thought that the two were going to connect, the CW TV shows and the movies. And when it was announced that they weren't, I thought that was a stupid decision, especially with how much people liked uh, Stephen Amell, I believe was the actor's name, especially with how much people liked his portrayal of Oliver Queen in Green Arrow and how much people liked the show. And then on top of that, Grant Gustin's Flash, and that show was well received and liked. So I was like, that would be a smart move to connect the TV and the movies, because it would kind of offset a lot of this mixed reaction that Man of Steel got. And then at the end of Batman, in Batman v Superman, prior to it, it was announced that they're not going to connect, because we got the announcement that they'd hired Ezra Miller to play the Flash. So that was kind of a disappointment, but that's where I was hoping they were going. Was our Justice League was going to be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, Flash, and then maybe one other female superhero character, maybe Black Canary, because they'd introduced her on uh, the Arrow show, I believe, but it didn't go that way. So I like that he's talking about how it will be connected from here on out. We're not just going to have a bunch of different entities making DC properties and none of them connect, and it's all just like, oh, what, this one is separate from that one, which is separate from that one, which is separate from that one. So it's really confusing. They don't connect at all. No, they're going to make everything much more cohesive, and it's all going to interconnect. With that, though, he mentions that along with television and movies, they are also going to interconnect animation and video games. It's not that this is a bad idea, I just don't think that was necessary, especially the video game stuff. I don't think the video games I don't think DC video games need to connect to this franchise. I think you could leave it as live action. Live action TV shows, live action movies, they all connect. If you want to throw in the animation, it's not a bad idea. I don't really see a huge problem with it. Marvel is attempting to do that. They created the What If animated show, and then they've got the Spider-Man freshman year animated show coming out that's set in the MCU. So they are also dabbling in the whole like connecting animation to the rest of it. Uh, it wasn't necessary, but if they want to do it, more power to them, I guess. And he will talk more about it here in a minute, so let's go back and keep watching.
The characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity. Now,
So that's a good point as well. So far, he's telling me a lot of good stuff. So I've always said that like there's nothing wrong with DC doing one-offs and alternate reality stories. They just need to be clearly labeled as that's what this is. It's its own thing. It does not pertain at all to the mainstream story. So read it, watch it, play it if you want to, but you don't need to. You could skip it entirely and you will still understand the mainstream story and the mainstream continuity. They've been reluctant to do this in the past because obviously the truly dedicated fans who love this stuff so much, it's like cocaine for them. They're gonna read and watch and play everything, but your average fan is not. And I think one of the business practices that they've been operating under is, look, if we tell people that this is not necessary to the main story, then we're going to cheat ourselves out of a lot of money because then people won't watch it. There's a lot of people we could get to watch it, read it, play it if they think that it might connect to the main story. But this is more honest and it's more direct with your consumers, and I think it's going to be better for them in the long run to just be upfront about what connects and what does not connect.
Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First, we have Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash,
So with the Shazam that he just talked about, and with I think the other 3 that he's going to mention here coming up, he mentions that Shazam has always been in his own little corner of the DCU, so that sets him up to connect well. It's kind of up in the air whether he's saying, oh, that means that since Shazam has relatively other than that cameo, other than that scene at the end, the after credit scene of Shazam, the first Shazam, where Superman shows up at the school, but you don't get to see his face because they couldn't get Henry Cavill. Other than that scene, the Shazam film does not directly tie into the DCU. Yes, Freddie Freeman references other superheroes like Superman and Batman, but you don't see them. You don't see them essentially. They don't go to Gotham, they don't go to Metropolis. None of these other characters come into play. It is relatively exclusive from the rest of the franchise. Now, I don't know exactly if James Gunn is saying that that means it connects well in terms of like that means we can bring it into our new vision because it's relatively clean and untouched and uncontaminated, or if he means we're gonna if he's saying since it's uncontaminated and untouched and clean, we're gonna release the film because it's not gonna damage our new one at all. I don't know. I don't know what he's trying. I don't really know what he means by that. I liked the Zachary Levi as Shazam, and I thought the first Shazam movie was a fine movie. So I'm not against them continuing that into their new DCU. Uh, And like I said, other than that scene with Superman in the school, there's no reason that it could not. So we'll just have to wait and see what he means by that.
Fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire dash. A fantastic movie that so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash. A fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire DC universe. And then to move into Blue Beetle.
So he's confirming what we already knew. I can remember might have been like a year or so ago where there was a bit of an outcry that like the Flash movie was going to be used to basically destroy the Snyderverse and reset everything. And people were upset and pissed off about it. And everyone, like, I say everyone, but like everyone who still gives a shit, which is not that many people, if you really think about it, they were just ranting and raving online. And there were a few actors. I want to say Ezra Miller said something about it online. He put out a post that was like, nothing can erase what Zack Snyder did. It will always be part of the story, blah, blah, blah. I'm paraphrasing, but it was along the lines of that. Well, it turns to find out that's all horseshit because James Gunn just confirms it. The Flash movie is going to reset the DCU. This is what we've highly suspected the entire time. I've been saying it for a long time. They're going to use this as the reset button to shake the Etch-a-Sketch on this thing and kind of take it back to square one and try to get its shit together. So, yeah. It is weird, though, to me that they're not kind of changing the release dates, because if the Flash movie is the one that hits the reset button on this, that wouldn't you want that to be the last movie to come out right before your reset? That's what I would think. But in this video, if we keep watching, which we will, he's going to talk about how the Flash movie comes out, it resets the DCU, and then Aquaman comes out. So Aquaman may or may not be part of his new DCU. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I doubt it, because right now the big rumor and talk that we're hearing is Jason Momoa is going to be kept around as part of the new DCU, but he's going to be playing a new character. And the rumor, and this is only a rumor, the rumor is he's going to be playing Lobo. So we will see what happens, but it seems weird. It seems weird that the Flash is going to come out, reset the universe, but then Aquaman's going to come out. Maybe they were already too committed to these release dates and they just couldn't change them. But basically what I would advise is everything, these movies he's talking about, Shazam, The Flash, Aquaman, and there's a fourth one, Blue Beetle. So basically just Shazam, The Flash, and Aquaman. Until we know for sure otherwise, I would just go ahead and assume that these movies do not fucking matter, and the only reason they're still being released is because they're complete, they're done. Warner Brothers spent money on them, so they're like, fuck it, let's release them and try to get some money out of them before we just shake the Etch-a-Sketch and reset this whole thing.
A fantastic film about a kid who's a Marvel into Blue Beetle.
Okay, so now we're talking about Blue Beetle, and I do believe that Blue Beetle is going to continue into James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC franchise.
A fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you.
So it sounds like the Flash movie is going to come out, and then there's going to be two films right after that, which is Blue Beetle, which I do believe will continue on and carry into James Gunn's new DCU, and then we're going to get Aquaman. And I notice how he says very little about either. He says that Blue Beetle is about a kid who's a very significant part of the DCU, and then he says, and then Aquaman. Which, to me, is kind of them saying, like, what I got out of all that was Shazam might be coming along in the future, because he's relatively been on his own, and he has not really touched the rest of the franchise. Flash is going to reset everything. Aquaman's fucking out. We're going to release it, but it doesn't fucking matter. And Blue Beetle, we'll wait and see. That's what I got out of that.
About now. So, Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming. This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters. Now, what I'm about to tell you, is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter. The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written all the episodes. Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action. The next project up is Waller.
Okay, so right off the bat there with Creature Commandos, unless they just so happen to make this Creatures Commandos animated series contain plot elements that are vital to the overall story of the franchise, I don't really see people giving too much of a shit, because you look on that screen there and I recognize a few DC characters because I'm a DC fan. But most people, they're just going to see this wacky, zany, like your average Joe people who are just sitting at home at night, like flipping through HBO looking for something to watch. And they check out the new superhero movie content every once in a while. They're a little up to date on it. They went and saw Infinity War just like everyone. They went and saw Endgame just like everyone. They like Batman, but they're not the deep fans. So they're sitting there at home, they're flipping through HBO Max looking for something to watch. They come across Creature Commandos, and what they see is this wacky, zany looking animated show with a bunch of these creaturey characters that they don't know anything the fuck about. It says it's related to DC, but they don't know what it is, and it's animated. And I don't agree with this, but I just know that it is the way of the world. In the world we live in, it is much harder to get grown adults to give animated entertainment a try than it is to get them to try live action entertainment. So the fact that it's animated is also going to hurt it. Might get some kids to watch it, some younger people, but and I will definitely be giving it a shot. However, my prediction is that Creature Commandos, it ends up being no one really gives a shit about it. That's just my take on that.
This is a story of Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it.
All right, so on that, with the Waller show, sounds like it's going to be live action because he did not say animation, and he meant, one, he didn't say animation. Two, he referenced Viola Davis play it. Now, he also said that the same actors were going to do animation, and also they're going to do the character in live action. But he also said they're going to like Waller and the characters of the Waller show are going to interact with the characters from Peacemaker and Team Peacemaker. So that leads me to believe this is going to be live action. I will say this, if it connects heavily, once again, if it connects heavily to Peacemaker and it connects heavily to the greater overall franchise and it contains plot information, story information, narrative information that is pertinent to the overall grand story of the franchise, then people will watch it. However, if not, no one's going to give a shit. No one cares. Amanda Waller is not, I wish DC would just give it the fuck up. She is not the character that you all want her to be. And she never will be. She won't. Ever. It's just not going to happen. She is a support character for Justice League stories and Suicide Squad stories. That is it. That's it. She's not a main character. She's not an A-list or a B-list or even a C-list. She's just Amanda fucking Waller. She's just there to be the angry government guy that doesn't agree with what these superhero folks are up to. That's it. That's her whole shtick. She does not fucking matter. This is like doing a Lois Lane show. Who gives a flying fuck? I have zero interest in watching Waller, and the only reason I'm gonna watch it is if it, like I said, if it contains information that is extremely pertinent to the overall story of the DCU. And I mean, like, it's got to have to be some shit that's like, I can't just find a YouTube video explaining the shit to me or find it online on the Wikia page. I have zero interest in watching Waller. Like, I do not give a fuck about it.
Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025.
Okay, he says 2025. I know I kind of cut it off early there. Okay, so Superman, and let's talk about, first of all, he says that this is the real start of the new DCU. What I think he means by that is, like, this is the first big installment. Like, Creature Commandos is a little animated series. Waller, no one's gonna give a shit about. And the four movies before that, who knows if they're even a part of it. So, yeah, Superman Legacy is what he says is going to be the starting point, the real big starting point. Now, a couple concerns I have with this. I don't know if they just, I feel like the image of Superman they're showing here, which is from the comic book All-Star Superman, that is, I feel like they chose that picture for a purpose. I feel like they chose that as to kind of hint that that is what they are taking inspiration from to make this movie. And that has me a little worried. The reason that it has me a little worried is because, let me just make sure I'm correct here. So I was kind of right and I was kind of wrong. All-Star Superman. I've seen the animated movie, but it was a long time ago. All-Star Superman is, in a way, it's another one of those death of Superman stories. It involves Superman dealing with his own mortality. He's dying. And in the end, the way it ends off, Superman is not dead, but he is not able to continue being Superman in the traditional sense. I'll leave it at that. Now, All-Star Superman is also heralded as like the greatest Superman story of all time. But it, like I said, it does end off with Superman kind of going away. And the fact that this movie is called Superman Legacy, that has me worried that what they're going to do here is they're going to do a movie that shows the best of Superman. It shows the best of all aspects of Clark Kent Superman, and then they're going to end it with Clark Kent Superman going bye-bye. And they're going to bring in a legacy character to be the new Superman. They might go the Calvin Ellis Black President Superman route. They might go the Jonathan Kent, his son, route. Who knows? Either way, I'm going to say this now. If this movie ends with Clark Kent no longer being the main Superman of this franchise, you all fucked up and you should just go jump off a cliff. Because that's just like holy shit. You guys are given the chance to fix all of this, and then you just steer it right back into the fucking trench. You just steer it right back off a cliff. If that's what happens at the end of this movie, Clark Kent, traditional basic ass normal Superman, is no longer our main Superman. This is a failure, and you have just refucked the entire franchise. When are you people gonna get this shit? And here's the thing: I don't know that that's gonna happen. I'm basing this all off of the fact that they just happened to choose an all-star Superman picture right here, and that the name of the movie is Superman Legacy. Those two things. So that's making me a little worried, and yeah, like I don't know what it if that is holy fuck, if that is what happens, there's no hope. There's no hope and it's over. It just is. I don't know what it's going to take for you dumb pieces of shit over if this is the case, then that means that you are all everyone over there at Warner Brothers Discovery, you are all dumb pieces of shit. And I don't there's no hope. There's no hope because obviously there is you're just not capable of getting it through your heads that the way to do this franchise is to just take it back to the most basic traditional aspects of DC as possible. Like basically take the motherfucking goddamn DC animated universe made by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and make that into live action. Like fuck off with your own individual ideas and creativity. Just copy the shit that already worked. Holy fuck. Those two things, the fact that it's like they chose a picture of All-Star Superman and the fact that it's called Superman Legacy has me worried. Holy shit. Let's keep watching.
5. Okay, the next thing is a big premiere HBO television series called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth. In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. Next is a big movie called...
All right, so that's a pretty big announcement, and it's actually a pretty cool one, The Lantern Show. It's going to star Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. Those are going to be the main two Lantern characters, and they are both the Green Lanterns, and they're, like he said, they're basically space cops, and the precinct that they work is Earth. That's their sector of space that they monitor and keep the peace at. Now, is Earth, are they set to just guard Earth and only Earth, or is it that they're set to guard a certain sector of space and Earth happens to be the only planet in that sector that has like intelligent life on it? Who knows? Excuse me. I do like that it is both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, because I prefer Jon Stewart to Hal Jordan. However, I did not want them to just jump on board with Jon Stewart without having kind of, you got to go through the motions. You know what I mean? Hal Jordan came before Jon Stewart. It's just the way it is. So doing them both, having them both there at the same time is totally fine. I do like that they showed, if the images that they're choosing are indicative of what they're using as source material, I do like that they're showing images from Green Lantern Earth 1, because Green Lantern Earth 1 is the best thing to happen to the Green Lantern story in forever. It just is. So if you have not checked out Green Lantern Earth 1, the graphic novels, definitely do it. They're great. Uh, if, like he said, it's going to be terrestrial base, which means that they're going to be stuck mostly to Earth, and they're going to be protecting Earth from extraterrestrial intergalactic threats. To me, that almost kind of sounds like they could go. I wouldn't be surprised. Here's what I'm picturing in my mind based on what he says. I'm picturing a much less funny Men in Black. I'm picturing a less funny, more heavy on the drama Men in Black. That's kind of what I'm picturing in my head, and they're gonna do like an Agent J, Agent K kind of thing. But I'm sure there will be some humor. But like Men in Black was a comedy, like it was an action comedy in a weird way, but it was pretty comedy heavy. And I don't see this show being quite as comedy heavy as that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a lot of inspiration from that. So let's keep watching here.
DCU. Next is a big movie called The Authority. The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters. The Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes. We're doing a television series.
So The Authority. For those of you who don't know, Jim Lee back in the 90s, the writer, the illustrator, I don't think he's a writer, he's an illustrator. He set up his own little like publication company back when he was part of Image Comics, and it was called Wildstorm. After a few years with Image and being one of the founders of Image, he went back to DC, and part of his deal going back to DC was he basically sold Wildstorm to DC. And for the longest time, Wildstorm and DC, they were collectively owned by the same people essentially, but they were separate. So all the stories and everything that took place in Wildstorm did not touch DC. With the exception of, oh no, Sandman was Vertigo. So there was Wildstorm and there were two other ones, but Wildstorm and DC never touched until the New 52 in 2011. So The Authority was a superhero story comic book series in the Wildstorm, under the Wildstorm publication. It started to cross over with the DC universe in the New 52 in 2011, and it is most well known for two characters. One is Midnighter. He's kind of like this Batman character. He wears all black, a black trench coat, and he wears imagine Batman's cowl without the ears. That's essentially what he wears. And then he wears like black body armor suit with a black trench coat, and he's this very uber violent Batman. And then there's also this other character whose name is going to escape me at the moment, but he wears this just like skin tight white bodysuit, white and gold. I believe it's white and gold bodysuit, and he's blonde, and he's basically like Wildstorm's Superman. So you've got Midnighter, who is like Wildstorm's Batman, except he's like ultra violent, and I think he kills people. And then you've got this other guy whose name is escaping me at the moment, and he's like Wildstorm's Superman. And then they're both gay and in love with each other. So that's where we're at right now. It's basically some gay DC fan fiction where someone over at Wildstorm was like, what if Superman and Batman were gay and in love with each other? And it's 2023. You can see why that's being made into a movie, you know. So I'm going to be quite frank and honest. I've never read any Authority comics. Never read a single one. So I know nothing about them. Maybe it'll be good. All I'm saying is from an outside perspective like mine, looking at it, it looks it looks like some gay DC fan fiction that's being turned into a movie because well, it looks like some gay DC fan fiction that actually made its way into being a somewhat widely known comic book series. And then now, because we live in 2023 and every different facet of human life has to be represented in everything, uh, we're getting the Authority made into a movie. It could end up being the greatest superhero film of all time. Like I said, I know nothing about the Authority other than the fact that, Midnighter is basically Wildstorm's Batman. This other dude is Wildstorm's Superman. They're gay and they're in love. That's about it. That's all I know.
Is called Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is the story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game of Thrones with Westeros, but with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island. The introduction of the DCU's.
Okay, so he doesn't really tell us much. He just says they're basically going to do a Wonder Woman series based on Paradise Island, Themyscira, and it's going to be like a Game of Thronesy Westeros House of the Dragon type show. Great, I'll check it out. We'll see how it is. He doesn't really tell us much about it, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of like, I'm not. It doesn't intrigue me enough to where I'm going to be like Googling shit about it and trying to learn as much as I can. It's going to be one of those things where I'm like, cool, I'll check it out when it comes out. Until then, not really going to think about it.
Batman is the brave and the bold. The brave and the bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line, and so this is the story of the two of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU.
So, not a bad idea. I personally think that they should have just gone ahead and used the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman as the jumping on point for this new DC universe and just expanded it off that. And they could have developed that Batman character a little bit more. Like, I know how in that movie, uh, it was this very kind of like janky homemade Batman, but they could have evolved the character. He could have gotten, he could have taken more of a public role as Bruce Wayne, adopt that playboy Bruce Wayne persona. He could have gotten Wayne Enterprises shit together and started making real good money. He could have started to use the R&D department to develop better tech, like tech that can go toe to toe with aliens and super beings and shit like that. Like, they could have evolved the character. They've decided not to do that, so they're going this route instead. Now, the only thing that I'm concerned with about this is they're mentioning that they're starting off with by introducing Damian Wayne as Robin. That brings up a lot of questions. And the questions are, okay, how many Robins have there been before? At least one with Dick Grayson. Is Dick Grayson Nightwing then? If we're already on Damian Wayne as Robin, does that mean Dick Grayson is Nightwing? Is Nightwing going to show up? It's worth. I would bet so, seeing as he's talking about this is the beginning of the Bat family. My biggest question and concern is, okay, if this is where we're starting Batman for this, how old is he? Because I do not want a Batman starting out going into this franchise, I don't want a Batman older than 35. I just don't, and it shouldn't be, because he's got to go on to do a lot more shit still. And he's a mortal man. Now I get it. There's ways you can fudge around this, Lazarus pits, time travel, alternate reality warping shit. I get it, but let's just be real here. 35 is probably my max on the age for Bruce Wayne, and it will be Bruce Wayne because he, even though the the comic book run that he talks about, uh, with Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin comic book run, it's pretty famous. That was not Bruce Wayne as Batman in that comic book run. It was Dick Grayson. Bruce Wayne was lost in time at that point, and he had to find his way back. Dick Grayson was Batman during that time period, and it was him dealing with trying to rein in Damian Wayne. It seems like for this movie, though, they're going to kind of make adjustments, and it's going to be Bruce because he did mention it's Batman dealing with his own son. So, and obviously Damian is not Dick Grayson's son; he's Bruce's. So, it will be Bruce Wayne Batman. But how old is he going to be? My way that I like to look at DC in this modern day and age that we live in is this. He starts being Batman at 25 years of age. During his third year of being Batman, that's when he takes Dick Grayson on as the first Robin. Dick Grayson is, let's say, 16. We have to kind of up the age. I know classically it was always Dick Grayson was like 8 or 9 years old when he started being Robin, but we can't pull that shit anymore. So Dick Grayson's like 16 when he starts being the first Robin. He stops being Robin and kind of goes his own path to becoming Nightwing at like age 19. So he's not Robin for all that long, like 3 years. So now Bruce has been Batman for 6 years and he is 31. Then we get into hmm. Then we get into Jason Todd. He recruits Jason Todd shortly after Dick goes his own way and becomes Nightwing, and Jason Todd is Batman, or not Batman, he's Robin for roughly 2 years. So Bruce would now be 33 when Jason Todd dies, and it is at this point that I like to believe between Jason Todd and Tim Drake as Robin that Bruce meets and starts interacting with the Justice League. That's kind of how I would do the timeline if I was in charge. Now this puts Bruce Wayne at honestly around 35 years old, uh, after the death of Jason Todd, and I just said that 35 is my max, and they're talking about already being on Damian Wayne. This has me worried because if you think about it, it's like to go through Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and then be at Damian Wayne. He almost has to be older than 35, which I don't want. Can we just get a young age Batman? Can we just get it? Can we just make Batman an age so that we can get an actor in here who can play this character for decades? All right, we want a Robert Downey Jr. Uh, Iron Man. We want a Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man, Hugh Jackman Wolverine situation going on here with Batman. We want actors who can settle the fuck into these roles for a long ass amount of time. And you're not going to get that if you have to keep casting these 45-year-old people in these superhero roles. It's not going to work. We saw it with Ben Affleck. I get it. Ben Affleck had other shit going on in his personal life that caused him to just like not really not maintain the role. Let's put it that way. But like the dude that's playing Batman, he doesn't have to be jacked. You know what I mean? But he has to be in shape. And he has to look like he's in good physical shape. All right? That's easier for a 25-year-old. That's easier for a 35-year-old to do than it is for a 45-year-old to do. It's easier for a 25-year-old to do that than it is for a 35-year-old to do that. So the younger you go, the more you're going to get out of the actor. But this has me worried because if we're already on Damian Wayne, he's got to be old. He's got to be like 40 at least, and that sucks. Like I said though, there are ways around this. I think the best, if they ever needed to de-age Batman, I think the best way to go around it would be to take some inspiration from Frank Miller's Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. And in that story, Bruce gets mortally wounded. And Superman, he's old in that story, but he doesn't have to be that old in the movie that you're using this as inspiration for. Bruce gets mortally wounded. Superman, kind of against Bruce's wishes, takes him to a Lazarus pit and throws him in. As we all know, constant use of a Lazarus pit will addle your brain and cause you to go insane. But it's the first time Bruce has done it, so basically it just restores him to his youthful prime, and he's fine. After after like an hour or so to kind of like get his head together and figure shit out, he's fine, and he's just back to being physical prime young Bruce Wayne. That's what happened in Dark Knight 3 Master Race. I could see that being used in a live action film to de-age Bruce if they ever needed to do that. If that's the route they want to go, that's fine. All I'm saying is, if you think you're going to start, this is the beginning of your franchise that you hope does well and lasts for a long time. Like he's talking about like an 8 to 10 year plan, I believe he said. And you want to start Batman out at age 40? Probably not the best idea. I would rethink that idea.
Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series. One of my favorite comic book series from last...
So I'll probably check out Booster Gold. I can definitely see it kind of crossing over and having some interaction with Blue Beetle. Even though the Blue Beetle movie is going to feature the more modern Blue Beetle, Jamie Reyes, I believe is what his name is. You know Ted Kord is going to show up, and you know he's going to be referenced, yada yada. So I could definitely see that leading into like a connection with Blue Beetle, Blue and Gold, the comic book series, and the partnership between Blue Beetle and Booster Gold is pretty well known. It's a pretty predominant thing in DC Comics, so I could definitely see that happening. I'll check out Booster Gold, but it's kind of in the same vein as that Wonder Woman Paradise Lost show. It's kind of like, cool, I'll check it out when it comes out. Until then, I don't give a fuck.
Last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film. Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way, so she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last...
Once again, Supergirl, in the way he describes it, totally fine. We'll see if Superman, Clark Kent is around then. We'll see how Superman Legacy ends off. I've said it about two of the shows are on here already. My opinion towards the Supergirl thing is cool. I'll check it out when it comes out, but until it's out, I don't really give a shit.
Thing we're going to talk about a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. Anyway,
so that's, I don't know what to think about that, because he says, for one, it sounds great. I actually tried watching the live action Swamp Thing show on DC Universe back when they had that app. I think the episodes might still be on HBO Max, the ones that actually got shot. It wasn't a terrible show. Like, I was relatively interested in it. And I thought they did makeup and whatnot, prosthetic wise. I thought they did a great job with Swamp Thing. The show didn't ultimately go anywhere, and now they're going to try and do a epic horror fantasy Swamp Thing movie. But he says conflicting things there. He says even though it's outside of the DCU, it's going to connect to the story. So I don't know what to make of that. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how it pans out. It's another one that I'm definitely going to check out for sure. When it finally comes out, I'll definitely be looking into it.
those are the stories that I can tell you about right now. I've loved the DC characters since I was a child. They're incredibly important to me. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something very different. One of the things that's very important for me in all of these movies and TV series is that The director's vision and the vision of the writers and all of the creators is unique and something special. Storytelling is always king.
So what he says there, it's important to him that the writers and the creators' vision is something special. I'm going to choose to interpret what he said there in a way that has me a little more optimistic. He on the one, I'll give both sides of it. On the one hand, he could be saying that, look, we respect the artist's creativity and vision and artsy fartsiness. So if the artist behind the film wants to do things a certain way, then it doesn't matter what the fans want, and it doesn't matter what's going to make money. What matters is that the artist gets to realize their vision. Okay, that could be what he's saying. On the other hand, though, I kind of feel like what he's saying is we're going to make sure that these artists behind the creation of these films actually have good ideas and they're not just sniffing their own farts and loving the smell. That's kind of what I read into that. He said, what did he say? He said that their visions are truly something special. That seems like to me, it's a nice way he's putting it. Like, look, if an artist, if a writer, director, whatever, if they come to me with some bullshit, wacky ass idea, we're going to tell them no and to fuck off because we're trying to get this shit together and have it be successful. All right. It's more important to us that it be successful than it is that it's artsy and unique. So great. If that is what he's talking about, great. If he's talking about the first thing I mentioned, then fuck, we're in trouble.
That's all that matters to us. And I want to be true to those stories. I want to be true to you guys and really give you something different than you've ever seen before. And
so that, once again, that has me thinking positively about it. But then he says, people in this industry, they always like to use the word give you something different, give you something unexpected. We don't necessarily want the unexpected. Think about it like this. Like when you were a kid and your parents and your family and your loved one asked you, like, what do you want for Christmas this year? You would tell them what you wanted. And you would write letters to Santa and you would go sit on Santa's lap at the mall. You'd tell them what they want. You'd tell them what they wanted. The whole point is you told people, when you were a kid, you told people what you wanted for Christmas. Now, when Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, whenever you and your family opened presents, when that time came around and all the presents were under the tree and they were wrapped up, you didn't know what was in them. So it was still a surprise because you didn't know what was in them, but you had told people what you wanted. And let's be real, we all know on those Christmas mornings or Christmas Eve nights, whatever, it was always better when you tore into that package and it was the thing you fucking asked for. You didn't know for sure you were getting it, but you'd asked for it, and it was better to get what you'd asked for rather than someone just going off and doing their own thing and getting you some random ass gift. We all know that was better. We all preferred that. We didn't want Christmas spoiled. We didn't want our parents and whatever to just straight up tell us like, okay, I'll get you the thing you asked for. We liked there being this like unspoken possibility that we won't get the thing we asked for. But when the moment came and we opened the box and we tore the paper off, we wanted it to be the thing we asked for. So this whole idea, we want to give you something that, different and unexpected. We don't want the unexpected. We want to tell you what we want, and then in the end, we want you to just give us what the fuck we asked for. That's what we want. Like, we want to go into the movie not knowing 100% that you're giving us what we asked for, but then ultimately we want to get what we asked for. That's what we want. We want that Christmas morning feeling of like, I don't know what's in this box because it's sealed and wrapped up in wrapping paper, but I fucking told them what I wanted, so it should be X. It should be this thing. That's how we want this shit run. So, yeah. Let's finish this up and then I'll give my closing thoughts.
anyway, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was exciting for you because it's really exciting for me. And I can't wait to start to dive into these stories with you guys on this grand adventure. Thank you so much.
All right. So, what are my overall thoughts about that? Overall thoughts are a lot of those announcements I'm interested in, but I don't really give all that much of a shit about. And most of them you heard me say it's like I'll check it out when it comes out, but until then, whatever. And then the ones that you think I would really care about, I have concerns. Superman Legacy. I'm concerned that it's going to end with Clark Kent, traditional Clark Kent, not being Superman. That's my concern there. I'm worried that they're going to do some like bullshit and it's going to end with someone else Clark Kent Superman, whether he's dead or whether he's just forced to be off doing something else. I'm worried that they're going to set it up in a way that like some other character has to come in and be the Superman because Clark Kent is occupied by death or something else. And then with Batman, I am concerned that they're going to be starting Batman out too old, just like the mistake they made in Batman v Superman in the Snyderverse. Too old. 30 years of age max. And I don't see how he could be only 30 because like let's say he starts being Batman at age 25. I don't see how in 5 years he could have gone through Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, even if we take out you'd almost have to take out Jason Todd and Tim Drake. Now if you want to take out Tim Drake, I don't really give a shit, but Jason Todd should be in there. He's relevant at this point due to him being killed by the Joker and coming back as Red Hood. That's a good arc. He should be in there. So 5 years for him to have gone through even just those two, Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, and now be on Damian Wayne, I feel like that puts him over the age of 30. And I don't want to see a Batman over 30, at least not starting out. So concerned, interested in some of the things that were announced, little skeptical, and tentatively just being like, okay, we'll see where this goes. So yeah, that's my take on that. If you like this video, please hit the like button. That really helps out my channel. If you want to help out my channel even more, check out some of my other videos and maybe subscribe. Other than that, I'll talk to you guys later.